Hello and welcome to the Choralosophy Podcast. I'm Chris Munz, and I am going to give you a real quick pre-production update. The show is still set to launch on February 21st with 4 episodes, and I am in the process right now of recording those, and it's going really well. I'm excited so far of the conversations that are coming out, some that I had scripted in an outline and some that are just organically occurring, and that is super cool to see. The show, I think, is going to take on a life of its own, which I think is a very cool thing. It becomes a conversation with people and with colleagues that I just can't predict sometimes where we're going to end up. We'll start with a topic and it just goes where it wants to go. And that's a really fun thing, especially if you like to yap like I do. Episode 1 is done. It's already recorded. Interviews are happening with special guests this week for 2 more episodes. And I'm very excited about those conversations as well. I will only be able to produce the show long term if I bring on some business partners, and I've done that already. SightReadingFactory.com is on board. They're an awesome company that, for me, revolutionized my teaching when I started using their product at SightReadingFactory.com. I know for me, when I was a young teacher, sight reading was something I would do once a week as I had to gear up for it and go run a bunch of copies and get a bunch of stuff ready for the kids' folders, and then you've got to, of course, throw it away, and there's the whole time investment there that I just wasn't willing to do every day. But since I started throwing Sight Reading Factory up on a big projector every day, we are leaping light years ahead. And so you can actually go now to sightreadingfactory.com if you don't have that in your classroom and enter Choralosophy at checkout as your promo code and get 10% off. And I strongly recommend that. It helped me a lot. And I do plan to only affiliate on the show and plug products that I use. I'm really passionate about that. I want to be able to talk to you authentically about those products. And my goodness, Sight Reading Factory's made me a different teacher. So go check them out. I'm also negotiating with some other great companies that I love, and I love their product, and expect to bring on 2 to 3 more affiliates in the next 6 months, which is super exciting. It just means that there is an interest out there for our community to be able to discuss great tips and tricks and tools that we all use in our teaching. So on Facebook, I have created a secret group. And if you're not familiar with what that means, a secret group simply means that anything posted on that group will not show up in other people's feeds. So you say if you are in a public group, you might post something directly to the group, but then all of your friends could potentially see your post. So this group is not that way. It's set to secret so that we can have conversations that are choir director and choral musician specific. And it can be a really safe place for you to have conversations and maybe admit not knowing something. And maybe come to us or come to the members of that group. There's almost 100 already that are going to start a conversation that we can have in a very collegial way. So there's some rules on that page. If you'd like to join it, you can just look up Choralosophers and request to join. And there are some rules. We're not going to use that page to promote concerts or events or series, books, or any of those types of things. It's really going to be a show-driven conversation page. Where again, it'll be kept a secret and we can have conversations with each other. So I'm excited about that. So head over and join that if you would at Choralosophers and join that conversation. We're not going to have any put downs on there. It's a place that you can feel free to voice any of your opinions about choral music and about the way we teach, questions, build community, network, all of those things are great. So I hope to see you on there. And I had some thoughts also that I wanted to share about the first few episodes. I plan for them to be very general and broad sweeping at the beginning. My hope is that will help you get to know where I'm coming from as the host of the show before getting into the woods too much or down the rabbit holes of specific topics and taking conversations where they lead. The first episode, for example, is not very choir specific, actually. I've just shared some ideas in that show that could be applicable to anyone. And I hope they're helpful to you. I've tied them in, of course, to my life as a choir director, and hopefully you'll be able to identify with some of the things that I talk about in that first episode. One thing I also think is very interesting about the process of making the show so far that has caused me to reflect a lot on um, why I'm doing this has been a little bit of self doubt creeping in once I announced that the show was going to happen, and then started thinking about, well, why me? Who am I to have my own show? Well, first, I guess I responded to myself. I said, self, anybody can make their own show. All you have to do is get $100 microphone and a website, and you can make a show. So I thought, okay, well, anybody can do it. No one's forcing me to do it, and this is something that I think is really fun. But then I started giving myself a little bit more credit. I think I'm in a little bit of a unique position to host a show like this, in the sense that I've been around the profession a while now, and I've been very fortunate to do lots and lots of different types of things. I've spent quite a bit of time as a professional choral singer. I've directed at the high school level for 16 years, church music for 20 years, in the community choir world, running my own arts nonprofit and professional choir, Contract KC, for 10 years. Direct a college level group in the summer. I've had my hand on pretty much everything but the junior high and elementary school children's choir world. And so that gives me a chance to, at the very least, have conversations with people and really understand where they're coming from, and from pretty much all the different angles and levels of teaching / performing. So I'm hoping that leads to some better conversations that I can be a part of, as well as guide. The episode I'm prepping about music education advocacy also will be very general, but of course focused now more on music education and music performance. And it's going to go deeply into the why of teaching. There's not going to be a whole lot of how-to in that episode, but it's hopefully going to give you some tools for advocating for our art form, maybe some permission. If you feel embarrassed sometimes to talk to people about what you do and how important it is, we're going to have a conversation on that show about that, and I'm really excited about that conversation. It's a passion of mine. I am not shy about telling people how important choral music is. I've seen it change lives, and we're going to dive into the why of that life-changing power of choral music. We're also going to do early on a conducting gesture episode, where we will get a little bit more into the nuts and bolts of a rehearsal strategy, gesture included, but we'll still be pretty macro in terms of not going to be talking about a lot of specifics. It's going to be more attribute of the conductor related. And I've got special guests on both of those episodes that I'm really excited about, and I'll announce those when I've got specific show trailers out in a couple weeks. Once I get those big topics, the way I see it, as big kind of formational topics out of the way for you as the audience, you'll know more about where I'm coming from, like I said, and then I'll zoom in on the specifics. Things like score prep, teaching literacy, and then probably an entire other episode about going beyond literacy. Okay, so what if you're at the point where your kids already sight read really well? You can learn something in 2 days if you've got to. But then what? What do you teach during that sight reading time if notes and rhythms are getting pretty easy for the kids? So we'll talk about that a little bit. Talk about lit selection. Lots of those things, especially if you're a young teacher. You might be listening to the show as a resource for some how-to type things. And if you're an experienced teacher, then you might get an idea of what somebody else who's been around the block a little while thinks about those topics. And again, the great thing about the technology that we have these days for these types of shows and discussion mediums is, if you hear something in the show that you either agree with or disagree with, or just have more you'd like to add, then jump on that Facebook page at Choralosophers, and we will have that conversation. And I plan to be very engaged on that page and keep that conversation moderated and going. So I'm excited about that. So if you have the time, go on to your iTunes, your Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts, and subscribe to the show. That will keep a notification pinging at you every time a new episode comes out. Planning to have a big release in a couple weeks with a lot of content. Then it'll pace out a little bit more after that. Thinking about maybe every other week putting out a new topic and a new conversation. So I hope you'll join me for all of that. I'm getting really excited about the show. And the creation of it is very fun, and I'm already getting lots of feedback from people out there who are excited about the show, and that just makes me pumped. So get on, subscribe, get on that Facebook page, and I'm going to be mining you for some ideas also on the show, and I'd love to have you listening and hear your ideas discussed on the show. So great stuff to come. See you next time, February 21st, and I hope lots of you are coming to Kansas City for the ACDA convention, and come up and give me a high five there as well. Thanks a lot.